The bombing at Hiroshima affected everyone's life. Every person that lived here during the bombing was affected either through their families or the way that they were living their life. The bombing affected me, Miss Nakamura, through my family and financially, making me homeless for years. As a widow with 3 children, it was very hard for me to take care of my children with little support. But I knew during the bombing I would have to stay intact with my feelings so I can support my children, who in the end supported me.
I was living a normal life with my 3 children before the bombing. While we were trying to survive this rough time, our country was going through a war, along with the Axis powers against the Allies. During this time, all we had to eat was rice and peanuts. My husband, Iswat, tried to fight hard for our country, leaving him to die an honorable death. While I was laying in bed, trying to get some rest, I was awoken by the sirens. I then went to look out my window, and when this bomb hit our country, I was standing in the kitchen watching my neighbor tear down his home. While I was standing in my kitchen, I saw everything flash before my eyes. Everything turned white. Then something picked me up and I flew into the next room over. Timbers fell down around me, and as I landed on the ground, tiles piled on top of me. I was buried in all of this debris. I then had to force myself to get up because I heard my youngest child, Michael, yelling for me to help him.
Neither of my children had one scratch or cut on them. Afterwards, we went back into the mess to find clothes for my children to wear in case it got cold. We then started making our way to Asano Park. My children and I were the first to arrive at the private estate. We then rested near the river. My children were thirsty, so we decided to drink out of the river water. We ended up vomiting from the water. It had been a year later, and we still had nothing to survive. I was expecting something to happen to us or one of our allies involved in the war. On August 20th, I was at my sister-in-law's home in Cave, not far from Nagatsuka. I was feeling very nauseated through the week. My children were at the Novitiate as guests of Father Queensword. I began fixing my hair and noticed after one brush with my comb I had a whole handful of hair come out. I tried brushing my hair for a second time and the same thing happened. Then in the next 3 to 4 days, my hair kept falling out until eventually I was bald. I then began living indoors, not wanting people to see me with no hair. Then on August 26th, I woke up feeling extremely weak and tired. I then realized I was coming down with a strange disease which was later known as radiation sickness. I believed in the Buddhist belief that the resignation might lead to clear vision. The bombing was a natural disaster and it had just been bad luck. Like all other survivors, my life was different. I did not bother to get a health book from the government to receive free medical treatment because I knew it was pointless. This bombing was bound to happen to one of our countries due to the fact that we were in war. This bombing, it was the atom bomb that hit us. It was probably about the size of a matchbox. We had to expect this bomb due to the fact that it was war. The bombing can't be helped, which is too bad. For the rest of my life, I was living very weak and barely able to do any work due to the fact that I am always tired. I had my old rusted sewing machine repaired and started to sew, clean, wash dishes, and do laundry for the neighbors. Due to the fact that I was always tired, I had to take 2 days of rest for every 3 weekdays I would work. I would earn barely enough money for food. Later, my belly started to swell and I had diarrhea. A nearby doctor told me I had roundworm, and if it bites my intestines, I would die. He treated me with a Samtanon, a very expensive medication. The only way I was able to pay him was to sell my sewing machine. That happened to be the saddest moment of my life. Feeling slightly better and being dewormed, I made an arrangement to deliver bread for a baker named Takahashi. I would take orders for bread from retail shops in my neighborhood, then the next day I would deliver the orders to the stores. I only made 50 cents a day doing this. When I felt a bit stronger, I got a different job. I would get up in the dark and drag around a borrowed 2-wheeled pushcart for 2 hours. I would go all the way across the city to Iba. When I got there, it was daylight. The fishermen would put their nets for sardines. I would help them gather the catch when they hauled it in and sell the fish. A couple years later, I then found a job that was better suited for my health. Because I could do it on my own time. I would collect money from deliveries of the Hiroshima paper. I made $20 a month doing this. I then became eligible to move into a better home. My children were growing up great. Everything in my life seemed to be finally going back to normal. I was working in a small street shop selling sweet potatoes. When I saw one of my friends who suggested that I work with her at a company that wrapped paraffin. It was nice because my boss, Mr. Suama, understood that I could only work a few days out of the week. At first, working here was hard due to the pagan smell that made me dizzy. But once I got used to it, I loved this job. I was always able to talk to all the other women in the factory. I worked at this factory for 13 years, retiring when I reached the age 55. All of my kids were out of my hands, therefore I didn't need to worry about paying for anything for them. I had my oldest son Toshio taking care of me. He was always